Hello and welcome to the Movie Moolah Podcast. My name is Ben Yenny. I am your host, and this podcast is all about having serious people to talk about serious topics in an often silly way, because anyone who's been friends with me for a while knows that an hour-long conversation with me, even if it's dead serious topics, it's gonna get silly. Anyway, with me today are Ivan and Kira of the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience, AFMX. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit more about what AFMX is?
Yeah, sure. So the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience started in 2013. That was our inaugural year. And we were really fortunate to have the participation and support of Robert Redford and his wife, Sybil Joggers Redford, who's an incredible artist. And, in 2012, Bob and I had a discussion about what we could do to create an event in New Mexico that would contribute to the future success of film and the arts in the state of New Mexico. There were some film festivals, and there still are film festivals in the state, but we really focused on bringing together film and music to celebrate the creative equality between the two art forms. And that turned into bringing in photographers and painters and dancers and everybody who's in all aspects of entertainment to Albuquerque, because we had the platform with amazing artists and filmmakers here in Albuquerque, and the opportunity to grow it because of the infrastructure with hotels and locations and really unique events that we could put together to celebrate everyone. Having a name like Redford attached to the festival, the inaugural year, didn't hurt. And, so we got international exposure right out of the gates. The festival was really, really big coming out of the gates, and we just had a blast in producing it. And, year 2, 3, 4 through year 11, were just successes and growth each year and really bringing people together in a unique way. For instance, in 2017, we had T-Bone Burnett as our main music award recipient. We contacted Jeff Bridges to come in to present that award. The two of them ended up doing some incredible events. One of our center stage conversations, which had about 700 people in attendance. We called it pretty intimate compared to the demand for about 2,500 tickets. Then we went on to have a screening of The Big Lebowski with the two of them, where the award was presented, and Jeff and T-Bone did a Q&A after the movie itself with the then president of SAG-AFTRA, our local chapter. And that evening, we did a huge after party where a local band was brought in to celebrate the music of T-Bone Burnett. So it was all of his music, about 15 songs total. And in that process, Jeff and T-Bone got up on stage with the local band and jammed with them for about an hour and 15 minutes. We also had Wes Studi in attendance that year. He's a bass player, so he got up with Jeff and T-Bone. So our festival has really turned into bringing people together to collaborate and just enjoy their time together, learn from one another with the educational aspects and the like, and having a lot of fun in the process when it comes to after parties, happy hours, networking events. We just have a blast doing it, and it's been a great response from the community.
It sounds it, and I'm so this year is going to be your 12th?
It'll be our 11th year this year,
Okay.
our 11th edition. And, we were really fortunate when COVID hit to think outside of the box on what we could do for the community. So we decided to put together a policies and procedures for review by the mayor, the city, and the state on COVID policies on safety, to make sure that we could present different events while COVID was happening. And what we came up with was drive-in movies. So we kind of set the tone for other events in New Mexico, where they kind of followed the policies and procedures that were approved by the government here, that we put together. And we presented drive-in movies twice a week. And the response from the community was just phenomenal. They were thanking us for providing them a form of entertainment. So we were showing throwback movies, and anything from Jaws to Rocky Horror Picture Show. The list goes on and on. But every screening we had, 75 to 100 cars at different locations were sold out every week, and it kept our staff and our volunteers engaged. We follow every safety protocol. Kira was a huge part of that in leading that charge with making sure we had all the resources we needed and the like. And, it just turned out to be a really honoring thing for the entire community. So that kept us going and actually kept revenue coming in during a really dark time in the world's history here in Albuquerque.
It wasn't just Albuquerque, but I know a lot of festivals and nonprofits folded because they just couldn't make virtual work, because it frankly just doesn't work the same way that an actual festival works, and there's nowhere near as much value in the same work for a virtual
we thought we were going to have to cancel the festivals in 2019 and 2020. And Kira, if you want to speak on this, what we did in terms of the virtual aspect.
Yes. Hi. Yes, for the virtual aspect, I think as a filmmaker and working with filmmakers, we problem solve, right? We always want to see how we can keep the production going. And rather than just fold, Ivan and I talked regularly, like, how do we keep the volunteers going? Like he said, how do we keep our audience or community engaged and not let that fire go out? So when we were talking about the drive-ins, that is one example. For the virtual, that's when Zoom really started to hit its popularity. So you work with the tools that you're given, right? So you just switch platforms. You tell the filmmakers, hey, we want to keep this thing going. We're going to keep it going with a virtual edition. With that, you'll be able to still have the center stage conversations with the industry professionals that we bring in, with the filmmaker Q&As and so forth. And it just seemed like to be a seamless continuation of our festival. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do as much of the music aspect that we wanted, which is why this year we are going all out with music. So because we do want to keep that balance, right? We want to respect the musicians and the filmmakers and the artists as much as we can. So when it comes to the virtual, it was actually quite seamless. We had a great volunteer team that helped us on the back end with the technology. We had a phenomenal technical director, Melody Carlisle, who really is the wizard behind the curtain for us. She makes sure that everything is running seamless. And again, the volunteers really helped us keep it going. Our filmmakers were just as excited to be there virtually. And, we did it for 2 years, I believe, right, Ivan? And to this day, we still have comments from our filmmakers saying it was one of the better virtual experiences they had in a film festival. So we're quite proud about it.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, most of the comments that we get from filmmakers year after year is that our service levels, when it comes to our focus on filmmakers and communication, leading up to and during the festival, even after with follow-ups, is really second to none. And I don't want to credit it to me, but my background is in the hotel industry as a concierge. So my job for many years was to think outside the box, make sure you're proactive with service, and make sure everybody is having a great time where we're hopefully exceeding their expectations. And the team that we have and that we have put together are a team of just caring people that have service in the forefront. And we try and, like I said, be proactive with service. Think of everything before people ask about it. And Kira's our filmmaker liaison, as well as our director of operations. And the communication that she has with the filmmakers via email, phone calls, Zooms, and the like is just really spectacular. And that's all part of the experience. So we're not called the Albuquerque Film and Music Festival. We're the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience, because, from the time people submit a project for consideration through hopefully distribution of their film, we're a part of their entire experience.
So I want to kind of append to that, because this is kind of a story that I tell people how I got involved with AFMX. So in 2016, I believe it was, I'm bad with years, I submitted a film. And I was one of those filmmakers that had tons of questions, and I submitted, and I was nervous talking to the festival, like, oh my gosh, they're going to reject it because I have all these questions. And all the emails went straight to Ivan. And Ivan returned the emails promptly, very nicely. And then I realized I was talking to the actual executive director. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool that I get to talk to the head man, right? And when I realized I was moving back to New Mexico, because I was raised here, that was the first thing I wanted to do, was to volunteer for his organization because of that level of service that he gave me as a filmmaker. So for me, if I can extend that to my fellow filmmakers, to fellow creatives, I wanted to be a part of that. So really, it comes from everybody before me, all the former and perhaps continuing filmmaker liaisons, volunteer coordinators. I even set the template of a high bar of customer service. It's just my job to keep it going.
Yeah, and when we talk about service, it's internal with our staff and our team and our volunteers, and external with all the attendees of the festival and special guests. And Ben, having you come out the end of September is going to be fantastic. And I think what you're going to notice is, if popcorn is spilled in the theater itself, it's Ivan as the executive director working side by side with the volunteers to clean it up. I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And, I kind of lead the charge in making sure, that everybody's having a great time, that questions are answered, that popcorn's cleaned up. If we spill a drink, I'm grabbing the mop with whoever. And, the venue managers just have a blast and are really dedicated to assuring that they make everyone feel at home away from home at the festival. And, it really is a different experience than going to Sundance or Toronto, where you kind of get lost in the crowd. And, you have actors or talent or directors, producers who are shuffled in and out of back doors, and you don't have access to them. Our festival's a lot different, where, you can walk right up to Robert Redford and have a conversation, whether you're, an attendee or a speaker or a volunteer. He's unable to come this year. I believe Mrs. Redford's coming. So, it's going to be great to have everybody coming together. And, the cool thing, once again, is, you bring together filmmakers, musicians, and different artists, and see what kind of collaborations take place going into the future because of their introduction at the festival. It's just really awesome. One person that's coming back to the festival for a second time is the lead singer of Warrant, an incredible musician named Robert Mason. And, Robert just loved the entire vibe of the festival when he was here in 2019. It was Pat Benatar, Neil Giraldo, Dave Grusin. It was just
That's a lineup, man.
So it was pretty fun that year. And it's one of those things where people meet in person at the festival, and they could know each other for a number of years, may not have met each other in the past, but that introduction at the festival just sparks this communication in the art world or the film world that allows them to keep in touch and move forward, to collaborate into the future.
Yeah, I think this is part of why the same general sentiment, at least, is part of why film markets are still a thing, even though they kind of went away for 2 years, and they've definitely dissipated. But there's still something about having a meeting with somebody in person in order to actually close business that is still kind of vital in this extremely relationship-heavy business. One thing that just was kind of amazing to me was that I've watched meetings that took place entirely over Google Translate. Basically, they both had their phones out, and one would type what they wanted to say into the other's language, and they'd go vice versa on that. And that was still more productive than an email meeting, which is really saying something, given that additional level of complexity in terms of
use the tools you have.
Yeah, those are great stories, to see people who don't speak the same language and they're able to communicate with Google Translate at a festival, and they're working together, a year later on a major motion picture or a short or, a piece of music.
No, this ended in a sale. Like I watched it. It was actually, it ended in an international territory sale for a film. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I've had something similar happen. I sold, actually I shouldn't say who it's from. But okay. I sold a film to a territory, a rather large one. I sent the buyer our English language with English language subs trailer or film, because that's just what we had. And then the buyer got back to me and said, hey, yeah, this thing is pirated to hell, but I found a dub in my language, so I'm just going to watch that. And then he bought it. So we actually had this one particular film, we had 4 separate foreign language dubs, not subs. People got in a booth and re-recorded the audio as pirates, which I still don't understand it, but I actually kind of respect it, really.
Right. Let's hear it for technology.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is, on those business levels, there's a good chance that I would have said, okay, you can have a YouTube license for your territory for this, but you're giving me your dubs.
Yeah.
This doesn't get anywhere.
Right.
You can have that. That's fine. It'll be authorized even. You can honestly make money from it. You won't make what it would have cost me to make the dub, but there we go.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I mean, look, every festival people meet each other and collaborate, but we really make a focus on that. And we had a filmmaker who sitting in the theater showing their movie. It was a sold out crowd at the historic Chemo Theater in downtown Albuquerque. Haskell Wexler, if you remember Haskell, the cinematographer, Academy Award winning, who's afraid of Virginia Woolf and Colors with Dennis Hopper. He was famous for the end shot of Robert Duvall's spirit going up into heaven at the end of the movie. And Haskell fell in love with this filmmaker's movie so much, he came to me right after and said, does this have distribution? And I said, I don't think it is. So I introduced the filmmaker to Haskell. Filmmaker was just blown away, and with the feedback that Haskell gave. But 2 weeks later, Haskell got him distribution for his movie.
Oh,
that's
good.
Amazing. So it's amazing.
Was it a good deal though?
Yeah, it was a great deal. It was a really good deal for him, international deal, and it did very, very well.
Oh, great. So I just assume that 90% of sales agents operating in the space are not going to offer you good deals. It's it's why that's always the first question. But I'm sure Haskell knows some pretty high level people.
Yeah, he did. He did. Absolutely. Yeah. So, seeing those kind of successes at our festival make us really proud. And, whether it's that type of incident or not even incident, success story, or, a volunteer who meets a director and works with them throughout the week as their driver, or, a venue assistant, an usher that has built a relationship with somebody during the week, and you see them collaborating in the future. That opens up, it's just really wonderful to see, and opening doors for people is what we're about. And my entire career, since I was, a teenager, has been relationship based and providing service. And I think when you have a genuine interest in other people, and you show a sincere interest in other people and what they're doing and what their life is about, and you're able to connect people, it's a really honoring thing. And that's what everyone at our festival, Kira and the rest of the team, have proven over the years that we're about. And it's really, it's received quite well by everybody in attendance.
Yeah,
that's fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to coming out there.
We can't wait to have you.
So for those of you listening, I met Kira at a different event similar to this, the Seattle Film Summit. which is also where I met Stimson, who's the guy who made Tim Travers, and he's also on episode 10 of this podcast. And that's why I keep going to stuff like this, because every once in a while you meet like one of the 10 clients you need to have your entire career functioning for the rest of it. And that's how I got there, which is why I keep coming. And I'm really excited to see how the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience differs from the Seattle Film Summit, because there's a lot of these same sort of regional conventions that are popping up, and tiny changes in culture, or sometimes not so tiny changes in culture, can dramatically change the level of connections that are made at a event such as this. So that was kind of a lot of background to say. How do you feel about these sorts of events in building regional film communities?
Oh, they're absolutely necessary. They really are. I think these events bring people together. And look, you're always fighting for attendance, from certain demographics or certain target audiences. But those that do come to the events, and we've averaged about 7,000 people per year since inception, which is pretty good for a week-long festival. And online, the online aspect of it really boosted our numbers. But those that do attend, come from the region. So throughout the state of New Mexico, some from Arizona, Texas, Colorado, come down from Colorado, Utah. I think it's really important to have a regional impact. And I think one of our biggest focuses through our nonprofit AFME Foundation is education and students. So this year especially, we've really worked out a system where students are able to attend the festival for free. So, University of New Mexico, Central New Mexico Community College, all the high schools that have film, music, and arts programs, there's going to be a lot of students at the festival. And what we have found in the past is those students that attend, they gain so much knowledge and networking and introductions by our team to the right people based on what they're there for. Nathan East, for instance, is one of our advisory board members, and he's one of the most recorded musicians in the history of music. He takes time to take people's phone calls who he met at the festival, including students that are, learning their craft in music. And it's just a really special thing. That's, another example out of hundreds of how we're making an impact. And so it's not just regional. I think we make a national impact, where we have, people coming in to volunteer from other states who want to meet people at the festival and the like. And, it's just been a really honoring thing. My worst days at the festival are always the closing day, just to see how much success there was and bringing people together and all this love that people have for the new relationships or even old ones that they have at the festival. It brings a lot of tears to people's eyes. I'll never forget one of our volunteers in 2015 came up to me at the end and was just in tears. And I thought, like a relative had died. And I was like, God, what is the matter? And she just gave me this huge hug. She's like, I can't believe it's over. It went by too quick. This is one of the most special events that I've ever attended, and people won't understand it until they actually attend. And, so to me, it's a really special thing.
So I want to add to that because, Ben, yes, you and I met in Seattle, and I tend to be an introvert. And I think a lot of creatives tend to be that way. For me to put myself out there to say, hey, I need help. I don't know what I need to know to get to the next step. When I first met you, I was really encouraged and really grateful that you sat down with me and talked. We talked a lot. and you were so accessible, you were so given of your wisdom. I thought, okay, I can do this. These industry leaders are not out of my reach. I can ask them questions, and they're very giving of that. So I really appreciated you and your time when we were able to meet in Seattle. So when I came to New Mexico and I met Ivan, he had the same aura about him, right? If you have questions, we can connect you with people that could possibly give you answers. If you don't know what the question is, we'll give you that too. And I tease Ivan a lot about when we try to book or program our center stage conversations. Yes, we do take the community into consideration of what the community may want, but secretly, it's what I really want. I'm this little part of the community that's wanting to learn a lot. I went to the University of New Mexico. I was in theater, but I wanted to go into film. The film department wasn't as robust as it is now. So, if you don't have that formal education, you get it through the people that you meet, the people that you choose to work with. And so again, through you, Ben, through Ivan, we create these platforms where other people can get that education. So, because there is that gap, right? You don't have that, you can't learn everything from the whiteboard, right? You have to get yourself out there. You have to get yourself on the sets. You have to make mistakes. You have to be curious to know what to do next. And frankly, a lot of filmmakers, a lot of creatives don't know how to do that. So they think they do. We learned that last year when we had the marketing panel with Karen Criswell. There was a very important point that you have to start marketing your film when you start writing your film.
Yes.
I didn't know that. And that seems perfectly logical. So that's one thing I'm really proud of AFMX is that we strive to bring people, authentic industry leaders like yourself, like Christopher Lockhart, to the festival so that we can get that one-on-one education, which I think a lot of filmmakers here in New Mexico really want.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also, Sheena, you're coming, Christopher Lockhart. There's also people like Michael Helfand, who's coming to give a center stage conversation on entertainment law. Michael is a partner in Loeb and Loeb, which is like the biggest law firm out in LA.
Yeah.
And if people recognize his name, he was also the president COO of Marvel Studios when they started the whole MCU. So he's going to probably talk about, what went into starting.
I might actually show up for that panel. Just in
Please.
That's not. I don't do that a ton, but that one sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of what we're trying to do, right, Ivan? It's that, maybe entertainment law isn't as sexy as producing your first feature film, but it's just as necessary. You need to know all the, getting into the ranks of the industry, every filmmaker will say, before you become that director, you have to become that PA, which fortunately we have Josh Friedman, who will be coming for a center stage conversation that will help connect those dots for people. So
what was the name of that one?
From PA to DGA.
Yeah.
And that's a book he actually wrote. So
it's a fantastic name or event name or book name.
He's a great speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a lot of the local union members coming to that one, and filmmakers coming to all the different center stage conversations, even musicians, that want to know about distribution and sales of their stuff. And yeah, it's really going to be an honoring year this year with a great educational platform.
That sounds great. I think I kind of rag on film school, mostly in jest, in a lot of cases, mainly because they don't teach anywhere near enough of the business that is actually what will probably be the biggest key differentiator from a successful filmmaker and a filmmaker who just makes shorts their entire career. If that's what you want to do, great, but that's not a path to making a sustainable company. biggest thing there is just totally lost my train of thought. But nope, don't remember it at all.
If
More
I
ways to
can help,
learn.
I think one direction you're going in with this, Ben,
Mhm.
is, you know, most creatives love the creative process, but
Mhm.
don't know the business end of things.
Correct.
And what we've been really successful with since inception of the festival, and I think every other festival, you know, kind of offers this or should, is you know, professionals in the industry who know the business end of things in their specific field, and they bring that and, you know, start that conversation with people. I mean, I've seen filmmakers like, you know, this young actor filmmaker Jamie Jung, who attends every
Yeah.
center stage conversation at the
He's mad.
festival each
Yeah.
year, and he takes notes and he introduces himself to the Ben Yennies of the world and keeps in contact when he has a question. And he's really learning that business side of things, which you know, it's either filmmakers should learn the business end, or they bring the right team together of people in the production process and pre-production who know the business side of things. So
Right.
Entirely.
it's a really important thing that we're trying to create or have created. And I'm the first person to recognize talent on both ends and try and bring people together. I've been a connector my entire life and career, and
True.
that's what I do with the festival. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a concierge.
Yeah. But you know, the other part of that too, sorry to interrupt, Ben, but is yes, we bring people together that could teach that aspect, but we also encourage people to use the talents that they have. So for example, I was talking to our intern the other day, and we were talking about the business end of things. And she asked me, you know, how did you get to know the business end? Well, my family grew up, you know, I was raised in a family with small businesses. I had my own small business. I was business manager for a couple of companies. And during that time when I was trying to find myself, I was learning these skills, right? I have a degree in theater, you know, I did stage managing, all of these different kind of skills. And even though I wasn't a professional stage manager, all those skills come together. And I didn't have that aha moment until I produced my first documentary. From theater, from the business aspect, from communication to everything that I've learned all those years came together in that one moment. And I went, that's okay. It wasn't time wasted. So that's another thing we try and do is encourage people that you're not learning a new skill, you're developing the talents that you already have. And so we sponsor events with Albuquerque Film and Media Incubator, with UNM, with CNM, to encourage as well as teach.
So yeah, no, that's fantastic. And what I was trying to say earlier before I got derailed on my own thought bridge was I'm not sure film schools are all that suited to truly be able to teach this particularly wonky business. And I think that events like AFMX or the Seattle Film Summit or other organizations and regional events that bring people out who like actually still work in the industry on their 9-to-5s and still actively practice their trade in the field. I think that's really the only way you can get accurate, up-to-date information, because the few classes I took in film school were on business were like swearing up and down the standard license fee for pretty much any subscription video on demand platform was a minimum of $500,000, which, my God, I wish that were true. That would make my life so much easier, but it's just not accurate. And I think it's important that places like this exist in order to help fill that gap that, even though I do make fun of film school for not teaching, I kind of also understand it, because you can't get practitioners in the field to teach a job, teach a full course. You just can't.
That's right. And you know, I mean, the other thing adding to that is, you know, the film industry is a relationship-based business. plain and simple. And, you're not going to build the relationships you need to be successful in the industry right out of film school. You may have people who went to film school years ago that are successful now, and we're in the same class, but, you have your education from film school, but the real aspect of this business is relationships. And our festival is all about relationships, return guests, return attendees, who are keeping in touch during the year and coming back. I was just in LA last week, and I got together with like 5 people, over a 3-day period, who were attendees of the festival over the past 10 years, and I became friends with, including publicists and one major executive at WME and somebody at CAA. And it's just you become friends but also collaborators in the future. I mean, Michael Helfand's an attorney on a project that I'm producing. Met him through connections at the festival. So it's one of those things where relationships, we really push that with students. I go in to speak to student groups at UNM or CNM or high schools, and they, they're being introduced to, oh, here's how you make a budget. Here's how you take care of, pre-production. Here's what you need to do, in getting contracts out to actors. That's great. The real need is for everyone to understand that we're a relationship-based business. I want to be able to call Michael Helfand to be my attorney on every project that I do, because I know he knows how to do things the right way from beginning to end when it comes to contracting, no matter if it's, sales and distribution contracts or talent contracts or whatever it may be. Putting a PPM together for investors, that's another segment, I think, fundraising. But, relationships, I want to be able to call Kira and know that I have a first AD that's going to rock and roll and I don't have to worry about a thing, So, my message to everybody, come to AFMX or whatever festival you're going to and really dive into it, especially with networking events and center stage conversations or panels, whatever it is, and meet the people that are on the panels, meet the talent, and build those relationships. That's what's going to get you further ahead in your career and going from a short filmmaker to a feature filmmaker, a lot quicker.
Yeah, another part of that I want to add to is that so we were at the IATSE Expo last weekend. Great event. It was a great turnout, and it was a great opportunity to talk for me to my fellow filmmakers and creatives about what do you need? What do you want to see? What's going to help you get to the next level? Networking is great in itself, but if it's not going to propel you to the next step, then it's kind of stagnant, right? For me, being on set is the same way. I can't get to elevate my production unless I know this about casting, or I don't know this about UPMing and that sort of a thing. So I always encourage filmmakers, to say, listen, I want to know more about this. Where can I learn this? And I think sometimes filmmakers are kind of shy about saying that, because I think, especially if they come out of an institution, like UNM, or not even just, I'm not going to name names, just a formal education, that maybe they should already know this and they don't. It's okay. Because people like AFMX and AFMI and so many other organizations here, we want to fill that gap. So I always encourage filmmakers to ask for what they don't know, if that makes sense. Casting, for example, I need to know a lot more about the actor experience. I am not an actor. I admire actors who can do that. So we're really excited to have Angelique Midthunder and Carissa Mitchell and Marie McMaster join us this year to answer those questions that people may not get a chance to ask. So, yeah.
It's also a business of people kind of knowing everything. So you have some people with egos who are ego driven, in the film industry. And, when you have a writer, producer, director, when they're doing it all, they think they know everything. And, in most cases they don't. But, we put all egos aside and, as Kira said, if you don't know something, just say, hey, I don't know, but I want to find out. And hopefully we're
Yeah.
providing the educational platforms and the networking platforms for people to come and learn what they don't know. And we're seeing more and more of that, I think, especially after COVID. If
Mhm.
people don't know how to raise funds for their project, we want to teach people how to do that. If they don't know how to get sales and distribution, hey, Ben Yenny is coming. He's going to tell you how to do it and,
Mhm.
assist you along the way through his company. And, I just, I think we're a better community.
Mhm.
When I say community, I mean filmmakers worldwide, when we
Mhm.
can teach one another and be there to help one another and make connections. And, I just feel like my experience throughout my career has just been the relationship end. I know a lot of
Mhm.
people, and I have people all the time ask me, hey, can you get this script to Redford or to so and so? That's not my relationship with them, and that's not the right way to go about it. So I want to educate people on, here's how you find out who their agent is, and here's what you need to do to prepare and present a package that's going to attract them. It's not a matter of just handing them a script.
Mhm.
That's not the way it
No,
works.
it's not.
So
And even when who's sending the script matters a lot more than I
Oh
think
yeah.
yep.
acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like, I can honestly say that if I were the sole casting person on Tim Travers, Tim Travers would not have the cast it has. While I did the finalization and the closing negotiations, I
Mhm.
couldn't have opened those conversations.
Yep.
And that's
Right.
just due to our casting director having 50 years in the game and
Right.
knowing
I mean,
yeah,
Relationships.
exactly.
well, and it's also reading between the lines, right? You could read what you can in the book, but
Mhm.
it's in between all of that, the nuances, the approach, the background information that you have to know. That's what I'm excited to learn and bring people in to help
Mhm.
me learn that. So yeah, it's not just 1, 2, 3. That's how you make a movie. Oh my God, I rhymed.
No,
But
I might need to suggest that to my friend Alan, who runs 123 Media,
oh,
as
really? Do it.
yeah, as his tagline. But
It's not cut and
the
paste.
just 1, 2, 3. That's how you sell a movie. That's boom. There you go.
I love it.
The but Alan might. I don't think he actually watches this. If he watches it, I will find that follow-up conversation hysterical.
Yeah,
Um,
he's gonna take a new log line away once he does watch it, right? For his company.
But we know who said it first.
That's right.
yes. Um, so yeah, that's all great. I do want to hear what you two think about specifically the growth of film communities outside of New York, Los Angeles, and I guess Georgia at this point.
I mean, I think incentives have a lot to do with it. There's some mid-sized production companies that aren't, Warner Brothers or Universal,
Mhm.
that mid-sized companies that are looking for the best incentive packages. So those states that have great incentives are what mid-sized independent production companies are looking
Mhm.
for in a production location. And New Mexico has a wonderful incentive package. So we get a lot of business here. What we need to focus on is infrastructure and building more sound
Yes.
stages,
Mhm.
because the demand is so high, but there's not enough sound stages to supply the demand. So it's an economics thing. I think it's important in storytelling to tell stories where they took place, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Somebody had pitched me an idea for a story that takes place in New York, like upstate New York. But they called me and said, "Oh, what are the incentives like in New Mexico to film this movie there?" And it's like, we have some looks that could be upstate New York. We have desert, we have forest, we have mountains, we have city. But, I really feel like, production should take place where the stories are being told.
I agree.
Unless it's like an exact match here in New Mexico. I'm always pushing New Mexico for people to come film.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that has
We-
a big part in it. So the production companies who are fundraising for a project, and wanting certain locations to save them as much money with rebates, and if it's debt financing through a rebate, that kind of thing. That's really important when it comes to kind of regional and outside of the major markets, and
Mhm.
how the growth is going to take place. So I
Mhm.
think with the strike and the big, the strikes with the writers and the actors, and seeing the effect on the industry right now with the major studio systems, these smaller markets, I think, are going to see a lot more business, whether there's a great incentive or not, based on not wanting to shoot it, on a Warner Brothers lot or Amazon
Nobody
lot.
wants to do that. Well,
You
actually,
know.
Right.
people do want to do it, but
They do.
not always for
Yeah.
good reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
There's
agree with
one thing.
Ivan.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Just to top that off is, Ben, as you know, I was in Seattle, and that was a huge thing in Seattle. Sure, aside from Sleepless in Seattle and Singles and a couple of other great movies, you see TV productions, you see films based in Seattle, and they're filmed in Vancouver. It's a long-standing story, and people are tired of it. What are they doing about it? I'm not quite sure. And I'm really not going to speak too much about that because one, I'm not living there anymore. And two, I'm just not caught up to the politics of it all because I do think it's a more political thing. I think people are trying, but I'm not quite sure how they're trying it. I respect all my colleagues in Seattle. They're hardworking. There's talent across the state in that state. And if it wasn't for, I forget the zombie movie. God, that's embarrassing.
ZTV, or sorry,
Thank you,
Z Nation.
Z. Thank you, Z Nation. If that wasn't there, I feel like nothing would have happened for those Seattle crew and talent. And that's a shame. So, moving down to New Mexico for me was a personal thing, but also a professional thing because we do have those incentives. I know we have the talent and the crew that live here, that work here, that were raised here. And that's what they want is just to, we don't want our crews here to be replaced by LA crews. That's not the point. We have the crew here, the crews and the talent here. How can we keep them sustainable with work coming in? And Ivan hit it on the head. We have to create that infrastructure. We cannot just rely on one gigantic streaming service to provide it for us. We have to be the creators of our own destiny, right? So.
No, so I've shot something recently in Spokane, which was partially how I knew Z Nation. Same production company. But the North by Northwest is great. I would recommend them. Just one thing, going back to what you were saying about why would anybody try to match upstate New York when it has one of the best film tax incentives, especially if you're smart about how you use it outside of New York City? That seems so silly to me.
It is. They're looking for the best deals, and things are cheaper in New Mexico. Hotel rates are cheaper, and rentals for gear are cheaper than the major.
Rochester is not that expensive, to be honest with you. It's very different from New York City, but sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's also the film offices. How easy are they to work with? And do they want you? Are they welcoming? Do they take care of you and your production? I have a friend who was shooting a $70 million television miniseries here for one of the majors before the strike. And it seemed like they got his business. He came to town and he has shot here many times before, major feature films. And upon departure, I was with him at the airport, and he's like, God, it didn't seem like the film office was taking care of things like they were in the past, and that bothered me. So I talked to the film office with some connections and kind of just filled them in on what the comments were. And I said, we need to make sure this is corrected. And, it's a team effort with communication and service. And it really does,
Relationships.
include everyone. It's the relationships of the matter. So, this producer director felt comfortable enough talking to me about that. And because we built a great relationship over the past 20 years. And he knows that I know a lot of people in the state that I can communicate it to professionally without it being a complaint. And I'm just making sure that we step it up a little more with that production when it comes back. I'm not sure that, there are people in the industry who are kind of assigned to, whether it's a film office for the state or a city that are actually qualified to be in those positions. And I know there's been those cases over the years here in New Mexico where it's been, people assigned to a position because, they went to high school with the current mayor or something like that, when there's better people for the position. And really it comes down to taking care of people and massaging that relationship and making sure that, people know that if they're bringing a production to your state, that they're going to be well taken care of. We're in a great position in New Mexico because the crew base here is some of the most experienced in the world. And they have a great training program. There's a really strong union president right now, when it comes to the crew with IATSE Local 480. And, they're just ready to go all the time.
Right.
Infrastructure is a thing. We need some investors to come in and build, 30 more sound stages, not just here in Albuquerque, but throughout the state. And make sure that we have, what the demand is.
Yeah. But, that's a two-way street too, though, Ivan. We can help those productions coming and sustain a really great relationship. But what are those productions going to do for us? And I think Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul is a really great example of those productions giving back to the state of New Mexico, which I think that's what we want to keep doing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, so Stu Lyons is a AFMX alumni. I introduced him to the Seattle Film Summit, and I think he's, probably there right now if it's going on right now.
I think so, yeah.
So Stu was the line producer of Breaking Bad. He moved up to executive producer of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He also did The Night Shift. He did the Cleaning Lady pilot.
Yeah.
He's 6 for 6 on pilots that are shot here in New Mexico going to series.
Great man.
As the producer. And so he took great pride, and I think the state and everybody involved with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul took great pride in 90% of the crew was from New Mexico.
Yep.
Which is absolutely unheard of, in a lot of other states, because they don't have the crew that's experienced. It kept these people busy for 13 years between the two shows.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the problem with film tax incentives in general, is that most of the time the productions are pretty easy to move. And if the tax incentive dries up, or if somebody just has a beef with that film commission or anything like that, it can be extraordinarily easy to basically to scare away that production, and that helps no one. And
that's right.
It's nice to hear that New Mexico's incentive is built more, at least results in more long-term growth and more establishment of IPs that want to stay in New Mexico.
Yes. Yeah. And Vince Gilligan is just like, he's a genius. And everybody that works with him and under him, on any production, I just think it's a real success story. And thank goodness Vince has become, a New Mexico supporter, lover. He might as well live here in the state because those productions take place here. And it's just a testament to people like Vince and Stu Lyons. Stu took it very seriously, in conversations with him over the years, of taking care of the local crew, not bringing people in from other states, and really showcasing the talent that we have here. When he won his Emmy, one of his Emmys for Breaking Bad, the first thing he did was came back to New Mexico and called all of his crew together, before production started, so he could share in that Emmy win with them.
That's awesome.
And it was like the Stanley Cup. Every player got to have the Stanley Cup for like a day or two. And it was the same with the Emmy Awards with all the cast and crew here in New Mexico. And people just absolutely love Stu Lyons. So what that does for future productions, if he is the producer on it, he already has the established base of crew that he knows he can fill for any production, small or large, because everybody wants to work for him. It's all in how you treat people and how you get the job done. He's the only line producer that did not miss one day of work for the entire 6 seasons of Breaking Bad.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Didn't miss one day of work. And that motivates people.
Yeah.
So
but another component to that, though, I want to add is, yes, there's the producers, there are the crew, but really what we want to foster more, I would like to see more of, is the content creators. And that's why we have the pitch panel. That was a great success in Seattle Film Summit. I pitched, no pun intended, to Ivan about having the pitch panel here in Albuquerque. And last year it was a great success. It really woke up the community, and maybe in a very small way, to say, hey, bring your ideas. We want to help you craft them. We're bringing it back again this year, and we're really excited to do that through the festival. The New Mexico Film Office is also, I was really excited, little self-promotion here, but last year they brought the Stowe Story Lab to New Mexico in the efforts to encourage, foster, and support content creators here in the state of New Mexico. That was one thing I've always wanted to do. That was a life goal I submitted. I was really happy that my writing partner, Lorraine Montez, and I got in there. Jamie Jung is actually in it this year, which I'm really excited about. But man, didn't that just wake up the writers here? Like, wow, people are investing in this talent, the writing talent, the content creating talent in New Mexico. Because, like, going back to what Ivan said earlier, if we had more Southwest-based stories based here, flourishing from here, what could that do for our state, just across the board? You see all these stories that are based in California and New York or somewhere. How many people are really going to relate to that? There's everything in between that we can talk about. So content creators, that's the next step for us.
I agree. I don't specifically know for New Mexico, but I agree most regional film communities hit a tipping point where the only truly sustainable way to grow is to grow the writers and the above the line people to be local, as well as the outside productions that bring money and work for the rest of the crew to keep them employed. It's hard to tell exactly where that line changes, but I think that it's often under emphasized in
I totally agree. So, one thing we're working on through the festival is the relationships we have with mid-level production companies that are looking to expand. We're saying New Mexico is open for business in your expansion, and using our connections to make sure the right people are brought on for that expansion of their companies. And it's been pretty successful. So, the content creation is key. Above the line, we have that here. It's a matter of getting them work. And but there also needs to be funding for projects, and that's one thing. New Mexico, economically, compared to LA or New York, there's not as much money. There's pockets of wealth here, but they're not going to fund 10 million projects. So having the funding for projects in a region really comes down to relationships and people contributing to a film fund that is going to take care of local talent and writers and getting their projects made. So we're certainly focused on that and working on that, through the festival and in the state of New Mexico.
No, I think that's it's really vital if your end goal is to establish a fourth U.S. film hub. with the other three being LA, New York, and Georgia, Atlanta specifically, then you really need to be focusing more on bringing your outside or growing your local creators as well as bringing outside ones in, but it does need to happen to both. All right, so now I'm going to move to the final three questions that I ask all of my guests as a way of closing out. And the first one you can answer second if you like, because sometimes it takes a second to think. And that first one is, what are your top three favorite movies of all time as it stands right this second now? They can change in 5 minutes, they can change in 30 seconds, but just pure vibes. What are you feeling right now?
So three of my top favorites. One of them is called Once Upon a Time in America.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Robert De Niro, James Woods. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Okay.
It's a long movie, 4 hours, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Jaws. I have to watch that anytime it comes on. And don't laugh at me for this one, but I have kids, so one of my favorites has to be the Lego Batman movie. I think it's more for adults than it is for kids. It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
I've learned something new about you today, Ivan. That's awesome.
Hey, both of my dogs are named after the male and female lead from How to Train Your Dragon.
There you go. Yeah. And usually I only work in black or very, very dark gray, kind of like Batman.
Fair enough. Kira.
Me. Okay, so maybe I'm kind of, I don't know. It is what it is. Really, for me, it's Star Wars, because that was the first movie that really knocked me out of my chair. Raiders of the Lost Ark. I wanted to be Harrison Ford so bad in that movie. That's always been my go-to movie. And Milagro Beanfield War, because when I first saw that movie in LA, when I was living at the time, I was blown away by the cinematography and made me miss New Mexico so much. I didn't realize how much I loved it.
Fair enough. Yeah, then your next question would be, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that advice be, and when would you give it to yourself? And don't say buy Bitcoin or Apple stock. Gotten both of those already. So
one piece of advice I would give myself. Take care of yourself just as much as you want to take care of other people. You know, some people feel this need to be needed, and I'll be the first to admit, growing up, I felt a need to be needed, so I wanted to impress everybody all the time. When I was a concierge, I just wanted to, go above and beyond for everyone. And, my health kind of declined a little bit as a concierge, and this was in my 20s, because, I was working 10-hour days and then going out on the town and partying and all kinds of stuff. And, it's just kind of to impress people with who I knew and what I knew and the like. So, yeah, take care of yourself just as much as you want to take care of everyone around you.
Yeah, mine is similar to that. I really wanted to say take the medication, but I don't know, maybe that's too far out there. But really what it comes down to is trust yourself, no matter how crazy it may feel. Trust your gut, take care of yourself first. Because that way you can't give anything else to anybody else.
Yeah, those are the first time I've gotten those, and both exceptionally good pieces of advice. So
really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Then the final question, and this one is probably the hardest of them all. Where can people find you, and what would you want anybody listening to this to take action with, if they were to take an action, because I liked what you guys had to say?
I mean, you can find us in Albuquerque, New Mexico, afmxnm.com. We're all over social media, #AFMXNM. And, I would just say, come to the festival, experience it for yourself. Just as much as we want to make introductions to people, we look forward to you creating your own magic at the festival by meeting new people and collaborating into the future. So we provide, I don't know, it's funny. I say, give me some crayons and a dot to dot and watch me make these connections in a beautiful picture. You know, we invite everybody to come do the same at AFMX, September 27th through October 1st.
Well, he stole my answer. So, yeah, I guess what he had to say, but also, where can people find you? Yeah, come to AFMX. I also have a website, jouskaroad.com, which is my production company. But as far as taking action, yes, come by, say hello, volunteer, ask me questions, info@afmxnm.com. Ask any questions of how you want to get engaged in any aspect of filmmaking. And I always try to connect people as well.
Yeah, we're definitely connectors, and you know, we not only, you know, run a film festival, but we're very involved in the film community here and nationwide with productions and production companies and people. So, you know, I said it before, relationships are so important in this industry, and we have built some significant ones. And, you know, we don't mind sharing when it's the right time to do so with the right people.
And, you know, I get lots of emails saying, hey, I'm this person, this is what I can do, can we talk? And we generally end up doing those calls because we want to know who's out there. And I think Ivan and I always try to strive to get people who are smarter than us in different areas, because we don't know everything, but we're smart enough to get people who know more, especially around our marketing, about other things. We have good instincts, but yeah, I think that's the key, is just make sure you have a good career around you.
It's true. You really need every good himbo, or, you know, people who are Kenuff, I guess, would be the already dated term. That we need to surround ourselves by people who know things we don't.
Well, being authentic too, right?
Very true.
Isn't that the hardest thing in this business, I feel?
Yeah, it's so there's a great old quote that I heard from probably somebody at AFM, because it would make sense. See, the key to this business is authenticity. Once you can fake that, you've got it made.
Once you can fake it, you get it made. There's a lot of people that try and fake it. Yes.
But no.
Well, fake it till you make it. I've done that, but what my faking is, I have the confidence. I translate that into confidence. Show people you're confident to learn.
It's hard to fake being authentic, though.
No, you can't.
Kind of, yeah.
But you have to have a sense of humor, don't you?
Yes, you do. Again.
Absolutely.
And you have to be able to make mistakes, for Pete's sake. You know, be okay with making mistakes.
Yes, I that was one that I had to learn. And it took me maybe longer to own my mistakes than it should have.
I hear you.
Yeah, and if you can learn from other people's mistakes, that's pretty cool too.
That's also true. Yeah. I mean, I think I wrote a book about a lot of that. Jokes aside, thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Thank everybody at home or on the go for listening. If you're hearing this in September, you should get your tickets and come see my center stage conversation.
Yes.
AFMX. And you should also smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to this wonderful content, either here on YouTube or wherever you're listening to it. And don't forget to set auto download and grab my film resource pack. Links in the description. Thank you guys so much.